Corporations in our government have learned to disguise fraud through insanely complex deceptive systems and a veil of employee incompetence and ignorance, as well as management bullying and censorship. A good rule of thumb is if it takes too long to explain, then there is something wrong. I will give you for instance, business owners. My name is Daryl Guberman. I'm the CEO of Guberman PMC LLC, a quality consulting firm here in Connecticut. I've assisted companies in manufacturing quality and also ISO certification, all derivatives. I have over 40 plus years experience in quality and manufacturing, in aerospace, in medical implants, medical materials, printing, and plastic distribution. I'm going to say this, that the word, basically, that these corporations and federal agencies involved with quality and voluntary consensus standards is obfuscation. I'm going to hold it here because this is the buzzword for everything that is going on. You will find this, and I will give you a simple example of this mess. In 2009, Lockheed Martin, who sits on ANSI's board, American National Standards Institute, also the American National Standards Institute, took over complete control of the American National Accreditation Board, so they're one and the same. And Lockheed also sits on the International Accreditation Forum that's incorporated in Delaware. At the time between 2015 and 21, they were controlled by communist China, a guy Zhao Jinwu, who has been involved with our quality since 1994, and he was also the chief executive of the China National Accreditation Services in Beijing, China. Also, he is mandated to take your data through the China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7. So let's go back. And by the way, Lockheed sat on the IAF then as well, right over by Pakistan and Iran. And you know what happened? They're the countries that admitted to harboring some of the terrorists of 9/11, which killed almost 3,000 plus souls, American souls. Okay, you also had Osama bin Laden, who was being harbored by Pakistan. And here you have the number one aerospace supplier sitting right over there as an associate member that can vote on policy. And what do? They stay there. And I'm not saying anything about the people of Iran and Pakistan. I'm saying it about the politicians. So we'll continue. You have Lockheed. Lockheed sits on ANSI's board, right over by the FAA, right over by the DOT, the FBI, DOJ, etc. And in 2009, they get hacked by China. In 2012, a division of United Technologies gets hacked by China too, Sikorsky Aircraft. In 2015, Lockheed Martin goes to purchase Sikorsky for $9 billion, a company whose technology has been taken. In fact, if you look at the Z-20 helicopter, China, and you look at the UH-60, they are identical. If you look at the F-35 and the J-31 China aircraft, they look identical. In fact, I think if you picked up the engine cowlings, you'd see Made in USA on it. Anyway, so in the Connecticut Mirror, after the purchase or before the purchase, it stated this. It's a newspaper, and you can look this up. You can Google it, and I'll say it slow. With China's okay, Lockheed Martin closes in on the purchase of Sikorsky aircraft. In the article, you have the four representatives here. You have Rosa DeLauro, you have Jim Himes, Chris Murphy, and Richard Blumenthal, all praising Lockheed Martin on working with China. On top of it, there's a sentence in that document, you'll find it. Connecticut lawmakers praise Lockheed Martin for working with an international regulator. They basically said, congratulations, Lockheed, working with communist China, even though they raped Sikorsky and they raped you several years ago of technology. Isn't that nice? Our full representation in Connecticut did that. Isn't that a tender moment? So we continue on. And by the way, this video today is about government bid illustrating U.S. underwriters of Wuhan lab are legally bound by probable COVID escape. And that's the video today. And this is this. So you have Lockheed Martin, right? And they're praising Lockheed for working with China. They're like, you can see Rosa DeLauro out there with pom-poms and going like this, like she's doing a football game. Also probably Himes and Murphy and also Blumenthal. Now we come up to November 15, 2022. You have Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI director. And by the way, the FBI sits on ANSI right over by Lockheed Martin, the FAA, the FTC, the DOJ, the DOD, and here's Christopher Wray. He states under deposition that TikTok is a disgusting display of China's infiltration of America, and it's no good. In fact, you hear now that the U.S. military is pulling the TikTok out of soldiers' hands now, out of their phones. Well, let me tell you something. They can't because they sit on ANSI, the DOD sits on ANSI, and they got a lot of, between 2015 and 2021, they got their data taken. Every one of those federal agencies that sit on ANSI have gotten their data taken. I don't make this up. So you have Christopher Wray stating on there that China is the ruination of our economy. China is no good. TikTok is a detriment to our society because it's China. He says that, I think he has the same lines he says on every one of his inquisitions about what's happening with China and the U.S. relations. And he says the same thing over and over again. He says, oh my God, he says, China is the detriment to our society, the way of life. And then you have Rosa DeLauro, Richard Blumenthal, Jim Himes, Christopher Murphy, praising China and Lockheed. So what goes on here, business owners? You got the head of the FBI saying China's no good. You got the Ford representation over here that's saying China is great. You know why? Because all four of them get disbursements from Lockheed. If you looked in every state, if you want it, I'll put it in the bottom of this, in the disbursements. I'll put like 2018 or 2020, their disbursements. And you'll find both Democrats and Republicans in every state of the union are getting paid by Lockheed Martin. And I know what you're saying, Daryl, it's only 1,000, it's 5,000. That's not the point. That's not the point at all, business owners. So I'm going to say this too. Underwriter. Well, we were doing some research concerning laboratory certification. I'm not going to go into this whole spiel for you, but we just want to get to the heart of the matter and show you the contract and show you definitively, okay, that the virus released, okay, from China, okay, the virus release, it is quite plausible, in fact, that it was done by China because you have Pamela Sale, who stated in a deposition, I'll read it to you. She is at the time, she was the vice president of ANAB laboratory and vice president of ASCLD lab. And at the time, ASCLD lab is owned by ANSI-ANAB. And also, ANAB is a standalone accredited body. And also you have A2LA that sits on ANSI. And this is what she said, and this is why it's bad. Because we've had pictures, and I've showed them to you time and time again, of Zhao Jinwu, the guy who was the head of the IAF between 2015 and 2021. He's been involved with our quality since 1994. We had him standing in the lab. I have a picture of that. But this is what Pamela Sale said. And this brings to light that, yes, that virus was released by Wuhan, China. You don't go after China. You go after the underwriters. The underwriters are ANSI-ANAB, okay? And we have the data. What makes it bad, though, is that this whole situation is involved under the banner of half a nut fuck you. And that was said to me on the phone, voicemail, by Russ Chaney. At the time he was chairman, because I exposed an impropriety about ANSI and A2LA, and just, you know what to do. Google Tim Cook, ANSI. Google Andrew Updegrove, UPEDAGROVE, ANSI. You can Google David Calhoun, 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 and you can find the videos. I don't have to go into it again, but just watch it, okay? Get an education, see what is happening here. So she said this under deposition, Pamela Sale. One of the issues is that there is no commonly agreed upon set of standards that forensic labs around the country have to follow. Instead, there are informal guidelines that labs can choose to follow or not, which means the Bio 4 level laboratory that was handed an ISO 17025 certification by Zhao Jinwu is, and here it is, Here it is, okay, if you didn't believe me, just in case. And at the time, he was the chairman of the IAF, incorporated in Delaware, International Accreditation Forum, and also the chief executive. He was handing it as a chief executive of the China National Accreditation Services. So we dug in. We wanted to know more about laboratory. We did. And we discovered that ANAB was being advertised on this website, and we took a picture of it, snapshot, so they can't say, we're not an underwriter. Well, they'll try, because this is a private concern here. We have the actual government contract that stipulates that ANAB is an underwriter for the IAF. So on this webpage, it says that yes, ANSI-ANAB are underwriters for the IAF and ILAC, International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation. I don't care right now about the ILAC. I care about the IAF because you have Zhao Jinwu standing here in Wuhan, China, as the IAF chairman, okay, and ANSI-ANAB were their underwriters. So when you had a failure at that lab, that's who you go after. And this is what an underwriter is, ladies and gentlemen. An underwriter is any party that evaluates and assumes another party's risk for a fee. Now we have the government contract. This was from 2018. Yes, I know it's 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago, actually 4.5 years ago. But this gives you more credence. This was in 2018. Remember what I told you. Communist China was watching over American bodies between 2015 and 2021. So when they handed this, when this solicitation out, they're also stipulating that you have to be, here it is, the underwriter for the International Accreditation Forum is ANAB. We had some questions that were answered to the contracting officer. And this is what he said, speaking about loading the deck. And by the way, this federal agency is on ANSI's board. Will the State Department consider a submittal responsive without the IAF or ANAB accreditations at the time of proposal? No, at the time a proposal is submitted, the contractor shall be accredited by 17025 by a U.S.-based accreditation body that is a member of the International Accreditation Forum, whose accredited scope conforms to ISO 9001-2015. Another question was, references to ANSI-ANAB must be changed as they unfairly and unnecessarily limited competition. The contractor shall be accredited to ISO 17025 by a U.S.-based accreditation body that is a member of the International Accreditation Forum, whose accredited scope is ISO 9001-2015. Now, I'm going to tell you something, business owners. Remember what it's saying. It's saying that it's got to be IAF, which at the time, the IAF was controlled by Zhao Jinwu, who has been involved with our quality since 1994. He is also the chief executive of the China National Accreditation Services. He is also mandated by his country of origin to take our data through the China National Intelligence Law Article number 7, which means this federal agency was bringing China. So you have all these CMMI, CMMC, you have ISO 27001, 27013 for cybersecurity. This kills it because, as I said, every federal agency on ANSI has had their data taken. And this is the actual verbiage on there. It's the actual contract number. You also have the date, 9/4/2018. And you also have the factor that ANAB is an underwriter for the International Accreditation Forum, which means, again, in simple words, business owners, and I'm going to leave it here, which means that if you have a failure in Wuhan, China, and yes, it was released, as you have specialists stating it time and time again, there's actual data going right back to the lab for the release, and you have Pamela Sayo, who said there's no protocols, it's ad hoc, do what you want to do. It is absolutely deplorable from the certification and accreditation end of that business, that you have the factor that ANSI-ANAB are underwriters for IAF, Zhao Jinwu, standing in that lab. When that lab released the virus, right? When they released it, that means liability falls upon the underwriter, ANSI-ANAB. Let them try to disprove me. Just remember this, okay? Remember, please remember this, that the DOJ sits on ANSI's board. So they're going to think and they're going to profess that we have no responsibility over that. Yes, they do. They have responsibility over that. And then I've showed you the email that I received from a lawyer of 40 years that states that both federal court and state court are no more than smoke and mirrors. I'm going to leave it here, business owners, and leave it at that. You're going to find the rest of the data in the description. But this today is about government bid illustrating U.S. underwriters of Wuhan lab, which is ANSI-ANAB, are legally bound by probable COVID escape. I leave it as probable because in our wonderful world, if you said absolutely, they try to come after me and say, this is I can't even say it. So I leave it here, business owners. Thank you very much for your time. 203-556-1493 or Daryl, TQRS@yahoo.com. And I'm always there. Contact me if you need some more data. If I don't give you enough in the description, please contact me. And if I don't have it, I know where to get it. And I have personnel that can get that for you. And a 24 to 48 hour turnaround time. I thank you.